Hi, my name is Liz Hathaway, and this is what caught my eye this coming week, the astrology of this coming week. So on Tuesday, let's start there, we have a Sun-Saturn square. Sun is in Taurus at the moment. It's a stubborn sign. It's a sign that knows its own mind, and it's a powerful sign. It has a force to it. The bull is not an animal that you can mess around with. It's a real sort of, beast of some considerable weight. So, and when the sun is in Taurus, it's quite conservative. It's creature comforts. It's it's a conservative sign in many ways. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And then it squares Saturn in Aquarius, which, Aquarius is about freeing things up from the ground. It's about sort of letting ideas circulate. It's about, it's almost like a new vision in a way that it wants to materialize and wants to bring through. And then it runs into this sort of old-fashioned sort of way of doing things. So it's, in some ways, it's almost like a meeting between conservative forces and more libertarian, more sort of dynamic, more, let's free things up, because that's, air wants things to be able to circulate. Because we've still got the North Node in Cancer, and we've got on Wednesday the Sun sextile in the North Node. And I think as long as the node is in Cancer, there's that element in the collective of protection, of looking after your clan, looking after your family, lockdown, being with those that you can be close with. It's all about the small and looking after the familiar in a way, and keeping the rest out. Saturn square Sun as well. It's a kind of a major shutout. It's a major block things off kind of energy. But that Sun sextile the Node, it's sort of saying, like the Sun authority is going with the general trends, if you like. And I think we'll start to see a freeing up of movement of peoples, and we'll be able to circulate a lot more when the node goes into Gemini. I think as long as it's in Cancer, it's going to be very much in that protective mode. So we've got this start of the week, we've got this clash between conservative and more liberal, more sort of progressive sort of energies. And then we get this sort of feeling towards, from Wednesday onwards, when the moon, for example, comes into Aries, so just before the new moon on Thursday. There's a build-up of tension there. Mercury's in Aries, of course, and the moon in Aries is going to square Pluto, it's going to square Jupiter. So there is a sense of real sort of build-up of frustration here, and the desire as well to sort of break free, break out. It's that green shoot cutting through the frozen earth, which is so sort of symbolizes the sort of Aries energy in a way. It doesn't want to be held back, so there's a real difficulty, I think, when the weather as it is at the moment is so beautiful, to keep people locked up. There's that urge to sort of do the natural thing, which is go out and find a mate or whatever, that energy. So it's there's a difficulty there, there's a tension there, certainly around the new moon, just prior to the new moon, when we get the moon squares to the Capricorn planets from Aries. Tense new moon, that new moon as well, it's going to be square, Saturn. So Saturn's all about halt, no, you can't come in here, at the moment, that's the message, that's the general vibe. And it's it's in this time of the year when we're just coming through, it's the end of the winter in the northern hemisphere. We want to be going out again. We want to be, circulating. It's so almost anti-nature in a way what's happening at the moment. But yeah, so it's a tense new moon. And we've also got, of course, round that new moon, because Uranus is in Taurus as well. So it feels almost like even like conservative forces are going to be forced to change. Something has to give here, something has to move. Uranus always tends to shake things up. And this energy, around the weekend, I find it quite tense, to be honest, especially when we get in, so we've got that new moon, which is conjunct Uranus square Saturn. So there again, you have this urge, these two separate urges in a way that are colliding with each other in fixed signs. So fixed signs don't give a lot of ground, it's really sort of, that's why it creates such a lot of friction and tension, and, sparks fly then, it's that kind of energy. And then when we get into the weekend, it's sort of like it ups the level of tension goes up a notch or 10, you know, because we've got Mercury in fiery Aries, outspoken. I mean, you know, squaring Pluto on Saturday and squaring Jupiter on Sunday. So I think the big challenge this weekend is to watch our words, be mindful of what we say. Because with Pluto square Mercury, there's that sense, you know, of word crafting, of saying things that create movement in other people, set things in motion. These are the kinds of words that could come back and haunt us, you know, 20 years down the line or something, because there's a lot of power there, you know. And Pluto, there's always that sense when Pluto's in the picture as well. What is his intention here? You know, what is it covering up? What is not being seen? What is not being said? Pluto is really renowned for this sort of secretive quality, you know. And then Mercury square Pluto, yeah, as I say, word crafting, especially I get the feeling as well of weaker minds being sort of steered by certain sort of verbal scenarios that are sketched in a certain direction. There is that power around in the collective, particularly, I have to say, in the weekend, around the Mercury-Pluto square. And then we've got Pluto as well, stationed in retrograde on Saturday. You have to imagine, you know, Pluto now actually squatting down, putting all his weight somewhere, all his force, you know, and that square there at the same time, moving into, on Sunday, Mercury square Jupiter. You know, it's like you've said enough, and yet there's that Jupiter, you know, can't resist saying that extra thing, adding fuel to the fire. So there's a general call, or there should be a general call, I think, for restraint. I mean, we can't influence the collective, obviously, but we can be mindful ourselves of how we use language in the weekend, because I think that's really important. Because also on Sunday we have Sun conjunct Uranus. I mean, great scenario for Sun conjunct Uranus is, of course, a original and unique way of seeing things. It's an original view. It's authentic. It's different. It's fundamentally different, and therefore zany, exciting, interesting. And it has a quality of freshness and newness to it. So there's a lot of good things about, you know, Sun conjunct Uranus. It's also that quality of, you know, we can change the world. It can have that, you know, in a sense of, you know, being nature loving, or, you know, changing, you know, your radical change in lifestyle, that you give up meat and, you know, only eat raw food or something, you know, so this kind of thing. But I mean, on the other hand as well, because we've got Mercury square Jupiter, because we've got Pluto square Mercury and Pluto stationing in the weekend, you know, that uniqueness and that originality can tip over as well into eccentricity. And then even further than that, it can tip over into unrestrainedness, into madness, into, you know, into actions that are almost like reflex reactions. There's no thought in it. There's a random quality to it, and therefore, you know, kind of a dangerous feel to it as well. So altogether, a really, really interesting week. I would say, you know, try and get into the energy of that new moon, because new moons always start in something. Look at the house where it falls. It's squaring Uranus. So try in that area of your life to introduce something new, some new thoughts, some new ideas, something different. And try as well not to close everything down. Try to be aware of where, with this you'll see in the house that Saturn is transiting. Try and see where, you know, Saturn is putting up some blocks. Try and see where that old, new, fresh ideas, as opposed to being conservative, keep things as they are. Try and see where this is manifesting in your chart. And it is quite complicated because Uranus is in Taurus at the moment. So even conservative ideas are being rebooted in some ways. But yeah, certainly in the weekend, I think with that station of Pluto, we need to be mindful of our tongues. Okay, thank you for listening. That was my look at the week.